My name is Evelyn Me Carter, and I am 73 years old. I raised 3 children with these same hands that now shake when I hold my teacup. I worked 2 jobs for years, sometimes 3, just to make sure they never went to bed hungry. I scrubbed floors, folded laundry late into the night, and smiled through pain because that is what mothers do. But on the night I found out my own children were planning to steal everything I worked for, I realized something painful. Love does not always protect you. Sometimes it blinds you. Before I tell you how it happened, I want to ask you something. If you enjoy real, emotional stories like this, stories about family, betrayal, and strength, please subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know who is here with me. Because what I'm about to share is not easy. The night everything changed started like any other. I was sitting in my living room, wrapped in a thin blanket, watching an old game show on low volume. The house was quiet except for the ticking clock on the wall. That clock had been with me for over 40 years. It kept time through births, funerals, and everything in between. That night, it felt louder than usual. Tick, tick, tick. I had just finished paying my bills and placing the receipts into my small blue folder, the one I kept hidden in the bottom drawer of my dresser. It held proof of everything I owned. The house, the savings, the land my late husband left me, everything I worked my whole life for. That's when my phone buzzed. A message. Not meant for me. At first, I didn't understand what I was reading. The message was short, but it made my heart stop. Once Mama signs, it's done. She won't even know what happened. My hands went cold. I stared at the screen, confused. The message was from a group chat. A group chat with my children in it. I blinked, thinking I had imagined it. Then another message appeared. We can't wait forever. She's getting old. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might pass out. I whispered, No, this can't be right. My fingers trembled as I scrolled. There were more messages. More words I never thought I would see. The house is worth a lot now. She doesn't need all that money. We deserve our share. My share. That's what they called it. I raised these children. Marcus, my oldest son, 46 years old. Denise, my middle child, 43. And Caleb, my youngest, 39. I remembered their first steps, their first words, their scraped knees and school plays. And now I was reading words that made me feel like a stranger in my own family. My heart started beating fast. Too fast. I set the phone down and pressed my palm against my chest. Breathe, Evelyn, I whispered. Just breathe. But the words on that screen would not leave my mind. The message that hurt the most came last. She trusts us, that's the sad part. Sad part. They were laughing at my trust. I sat there in silence, my body frozen, my mind racing. Had this been going on for long? How much had they already done behind my back? What did they mean by once Mama signs? I picked up my phone again, my eyes burning. I scrolled up, and that's when I saw it. A photo. A photo of papers. My papers. They had taken a picture of documents from my house. Legal papers. Property papers. My name was right there at the top. Evelyn Carter. I felt sick. I stood up too fast and had to grab the arm of the couch to steady myself. The room spun for a moment. No, I said out loud, not my own children. But the truth doesn't care what you can handle. It arrives anyway. I walked slowly to my bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept my blue folder. It was still there, but something felt off. I pulled it out and opened it with shaking hands. Some papers were missing. Not all. Just enough. Enough to cause damage. I sank onto the bed. My knees gave out. Tears finally fell, hot and heavy. I covered my mouth so the house wouldn't hear me cry. Because somehow, even alone, I felt ashamed. For years, my children told me, "Mama, let us help you." They said I was too old to handle paperwork, too tired to manage money, too forgetful. And I believed them. Because mothers are taught to trust their children, even when that trust costs them everything. That night, memories came rushing back. Times Marcus offered to organize my documents. Times Denise pushed me to update my will. Times Caleb joked, "Don't worry, Mama, we got you." I had smiled. I had said, "Thank you, baby." I had no idea they were planning to take my life apart piece by piece. I wiped my tears and picked up my phone again. I did not reply in the group chat. Not yet. I needed to know how deep this went. I scrolled more. My hands shook harder with every message. Once it's in our names, she can't do anything. She won't fight us. She never does. That sentence cut deeper than all the rest. She never does. They were right. I had never fought them. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. I felt small. Betrayed. Foolish. But beneath all that pain, something else began to rise. Something unfamiliar. Anger. Not loud anger. Not screaming anger. Quiet anger. The kind that sits still and waits. I stood up slowly and walked back into the living room. The clock was still ticking. Tick. 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 I looked around my home. The photos on the wall. The couch I saved for years to buy. The rug I brought back from a long-ago trip with my husband. This was my life. And my children were planning to erase me from it. I whispered something that surprised even me. They think I won't notice. I straightened my back. They think I'm weak. That night, I did not sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and a pen. I wrote down everything I remembered. Dates. Conversations. Moments that now made sense. I didn't cry anymore. I focused. Just before sunrise, my phone buzzed again. Another message in the group chat. We should move fast, before she changes her mind. I looked at the pale light creeping through the window. And for the first time in years, I smiled without warmth. Too late, I whispered. Because while my children thought they were planning in secret, I was already awake. And the next move I made would shock them all. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. By the time the sun rose fully, I had already made a decision. Not a loud one. Not a dramatic one. The kind of decision that settles deep in your bones and doesn't move again. My children were planning to steal everything I worked for. And they thought I was too old, too tired, too soft to notice. So I decided to let them believe that. When Marcus knocked on my door later that morning, I was ready. I had washed my face, brushed my hair, and put on my soft yellow house dress, the one he always said made me look sweet. I even practiced my smile in the mirror. The same smile I had used for years. The smile that said, "Mama trusts you." "Good morning, Mama," Marcus said as he stepped inside. "You look tired." I smiled. "Oh, you know me," I said lightly. "Didn't sleep well." That wasn't a lie. He glanced around the house, his eyes lingering just a second too long on the walls, the furniture, the framed photos. Like he was already measuring. "Denise and Caleb are coming by later," he said casually. "We want to talk about your future." My future. I nodded slowly. "That sounds nice," I said. "I do worry about things sometimes." He smiled back, relieved. That smile told me everything. Later that afternoon, Denise arrived with her usual energy, hugging me too tightly. Kissing my cheek. "Mama, you should really think about downsizing," she said almost immediately. "This house is a lot." I laughed softly. "Oh, I know," I replied. My knees remind me every day. She chuckled, satisfied. Caleb came last. He didn't hug me. He just waved and dropped onto the couch like he owned it. You got snacks? He asked. I stood up slowly and brought out the plate of cookies I had baked early that morning. Of course, I said. I know you like these. He grinned. They all sat there, my children eating my cookies, planning my life, pretending to care. And I sat across from them, listening. We just want to help you, Mama, Denise said, folding her hands. Things are complicated these days. Yes, Marcus added. Paperwork, bills, legal stuff. I nodded. It does get confusing, I said. That word again. Confusing. Caleb leaned forward. You trust us, right? He asked. I looked at each of them carefully. 3 faces I had kissed as Bobby's. 3 people who thought I was already gone. I do, I said softly. And just like that, the trap set itself. They talked for over an hour. About wills. About power of attorney. About how things would be easier if they handled everything. They used calm voices. Concerned faces. And every time they asked me a question, I answered just enough to keep them comfortable. Oh, I didn't know that. I'll have to think about it. You're probably right. Inside, I was counting. Every word. Every look. Every slip. When Denise pulled out a folder, my heart skipped. Just some documents, she said quickly. Nothing urgent. I leaned closer, squinting. Oh, my eyes, I said. Can you explain it to me? She smiled and started talking. Talking too much. She explained things she shouldn't have known. Details that told me they had already been planning longer than I realized. That signature is just a formality, Marcus said. You won't lose anything. I smiled at him. Of course not, I replied. But I noticed his hand shake slightly when he slid the papers back into the folder. He knew. Somewhere deep down, he knew this wasn't right. After they left, I locked the door and leaned against it. My smile faded instantly. My body felt heavy, but my mind was sharp. They had confirmed everything. Not only were they planning to steal from me, they thought today was practice. That evening, I called my old friend Lillian Brooks. She had been a paralegal before she retired. She answered on the second ring. Evelyn, she said, is everything okay? No, I replied honestly, but I need your help. We talked for hours. I told her everything. The messages. The missing papers. The meeting that day. She listened quietly. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. They're trying to move before you realize, she said, and they're counting on you not asking questions. I am asking now, I replied. Yes, she said firmly, and you need to move fast. Over the next few days, I became a different kind of woman. One my children didn't recognize. I smiled. I agreed. I nodded. And behind the scenes, I worked. I went to the bank alone. Spoke clearly. Asked questions. Changed access. Updated passwords. I went to the county office. Requested copies. Filed notices. Each step made me stronger. Each step made their plan weaker. At home, I kept playing my part. When Denise called, I sounded unsure. Oh dear, I forgot again, I'd say. When Caleb texted, I answered late. Sorry, I was napping. Marcus even praised me once. You're doing great, Mama, he said. I almost laughed. One night, as I sat at the table reviewing documents, my phone buzzed. Another group chat message. They didn't know I was still in it. She's slowing down. We should push. Push. I saved the message. Proof. The next family meeting was scheduled for Sunday. They wanted me to sign. They said it was just to get things ready. I agreed. I smiled. I said, I'll be there. But Sunday wasn't just their moment. It was mine too. That morning, I dressed carefully. Not in yellow. Not in soft colors. I wore a simple gray dress. Plain. Strong. I packed my folder, the real one, into my bag. Not the blue folder. A new one. With copies. With notes. With dates. As I locked the door behind me, I looked back at my house. Everything I worked for stood quietly inside. Waiting. I placed my hand on the door. "I see you now," I whispered. At the meeting, my children were relaxed. Too relaxed. They talked over me. Finished my sentences. Told jokes. They slid the papers toward me. "This is it, Mama," Denise said cheerfully. "Just sign here." I picked up the pen. My heart beat steadily. No shaking. No fear. Just clarity. I paused. "I need to ask something," I said. They stiffened slightly. "What?" Marcus asked. I looked at them. "All of you," I said. "Why didn't you tell me you already took some of my papers?" Silence fell like a stone. Caleb laughed nervously. "What do you mean?" he asked. I leaned back slowly. "I mean the ones you photographed," I said, "and the ones missing from my drawer." Their faces changed. All three. That was when I knew. I had them. But I didn't finish yet. Not today. Today was still about watching. Learning. Letting them think they could talk their way out. "Oh, Mama," Denise said quickly, "we were just organizing." I nodded. "Of course," I replied. I set the pen down. "I'm tired," I said. "Let's talk about this another day." They looked disappointed, but not worried. Yet. As I walked out, I heard Caleb say, "She almost caught on." Almost. I smiled to myself. Because they had no idea. Not yet. That while they were busy planning my ending, I was just getting started. And the next step I took would force them to face a truth they never expected, from the woman they thought would never fight back. The moment I stepped out of that meeting, my hands started to shake. Not because I was afraid, but because I was holding back something powerful. The truth. I walked slowly to my car, my bag resting against my hip, the folder inside it heavier than paper should ever feel. My children were still inside the building, probably laughing, probably convincing themselves they were still in control. They had no idea how close they had come to revealing everything. And they had no idea what I planned to do next. I sat in the driver's seat for a long moment before starting the engine. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman staring back at me did not look confused. She did not look weak. She looked tired, but alert. "All right, Evelyn," I whispered. "Now we work." The first thing I did when I got home was lock the door. Not because I was scared, but because I needed space to think. I went straight to my bedroom, pulled out the blue folder again, and laid everything out on the bed. What I had. What was missing. What I still needed. I grabbed my notebook and started a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, "What they think I don't know." Then I began listing. They thought I didn't know. They had copies of my documents. They thought I didn't know. They had been talking for months. They thought I didn't know Marcus had access to my bank alerts. They thought I didn't know Denise had been pushing me to update things too fast. They thought I didn't know Caleb had taken photos in my room when he thought I was asleep. Each line made my jaw tighten, but it also sharpened my focus. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard their voices. "She won't notice. She won't fight. She trusts us." I got up at 3:12 a.m. and went into the kitchen. Made tea. Sat at the table. And opened my laptop. I wasn't very good with computers. They knew that. They counted on it. But what they didn't know was that my late husband had taught me one thing very well. Never depend on someone else to protect what's yours. I logged into my email. Slowly, carefully, I searched old messages, bank notifications, legal reminders, things I had ignored or trusted my children to explain. One by one, I opened them. And suddenly, the picture became clear. There were emails Marcus had handled for me. Not deleted. Archived. There were messages Denise had forwarded herself copies of. And there were login alerts from devices I didn't recognize. My heart pounded. Not panic. Confirmation. I picked up my phone and called the bank again first thing in the morning. This time, I didn't ask questions like a confused old woman. I asked like an owner. I need a full access log, I said. Dates, times, devices. The man on the phone paused. Of course, ma'am, he said. I smiled. By midday, I had the information. And it was worse than I thought. Someone had logged into my account from Denise's neighborhood. Another login matched Marcus's work hours. Transfers had been tested in small amounts first. Practice. They were practicing on my money. I sat back in my chair, my chest tight. Not with sadness. With anger so calm it felt cold. You planned this, I whispered. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I needed more. So I did something that felt risky, but necessary. I pretended everything was fine. I called Denise. Baby, I said gently, I was thinking about what you said. Maybe we should meet again. She sounded relieved. That's great, Mama, she said quickly. I'll tell the boys. I just want to understand everything better, I added. Oh, don't worry, she laughed. We'll explain it all. Explain. Yes. Please do. The next few days were a performance. And I played my role perfectly. I asked questions slowly. I forgot things they had already told me. I nodded. I smiled. And every time they spoke, they revealed more. Marcus mentioned a lawyer's name. I wrote it down later. Denise talked about timelines. I noted the dates. Caleb joked about moving things faster if needed. I recorded the call. Just in case. One afternoon, while Caleb was at my house, he went to the bathroom and left his phone on the table. It buzzed. A message preview popped up. She's almost ready, just don't rush her. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. I took a picture of the screen with my own phone. Proof. That night, I sat on my bed and cried. Not loud. Not messy. Quiet tears that slid down my face and soaked into the pillow. Because no matter how strong I was becoming, this still hurt. These were my children. And they were planning my future without me. But pain does not mean stop. It means move carefully. The next morning, I met with Lillian again. She looked over everything. The messages. The bank logs. The photos. She shook her head slowly. They've gone too far, she said. I nodded. I know, I replied. And they think they're almost done, she added. I smiled faintly. Then they're about to make a mistake. She helped me organize everything into clear order. Timeline. Intent. Evidence. Not emotion. Vax. What are you going to do? She asked. I thought for a long moment. I'm going to let them try one more time, I said. Her eyes widened. Evelyn. I know, I interrupted gently, but I need them to show their hand fully. She studied me. Then nodded. All right, she said, but we do this clean. That weekend, I invited all three of them to my house. Dinner. Just like old times. I cooked their favorites. Marcus's roast chicken. Denise's green beans. Caleb's cornbread. They walked in smiling. Relaxed. Comfortable. Too comfortable. You didn't have to do all this, Mama, Denise said. I wanted to, I replied. We ate. We talked. We laughed. And underneath it all, something dark moved quietly. After dessert, Marcus cleared his throat. So, Mama, he said, about those papers. I looked up. Yes, I said. We brought updated versions, he said, pulling out a folder. My heart beat steadily. All right, I said, let's see. They spread the documents on the table. New versions. Different names. Different wording. Ownership shifted. Control reassigned. They explained. Slowly. Carefully. Too carefully. This part just makes it easier for us to help, Denise said. And this part protects you, Caleb added. I nodded. I see, I said. I picked up the pen. Their eyes followed my hand. I paused. Before I sign, I said softly, can you explain something to me? They stiffened. What? Marcus asked. I looked at each of them. Why does this version remove my sole ownership? I asked. They froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. Oh, Mama, Denise said quickly. It's just legal language. I smiled. I brought someone who understands legal language better than me, I said. They stared. The front door opened. Lillian stepped inside. Calm. Confident. Holding her own folder. The color drained from Marcus's face. What is this? He demanded. I leaned back in my chair. This, I said, my voice steady, is the part where you stop pretending. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Unavoidable. And for the first time since this began, my children looked at me not as their soft, trusting mother, but as a woman who had been watching them the entire time. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The silence that filled my dining room after Lillian stepped inside felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. Not because someone was shouting, not because someone was crying, but because the truth had nowhere left to hide. Marcus was the first to speak. What is she doing here? He asked sharply, standing up from his chair. Lillian didn't flinch. She placed her folder on the table and met his eyes calmly. I'm here because your mother asked me to be, she said, and because these documents raise serious concerns. Denise shot me a look I had never seen before. Not loving. Not worried. Afraid. Mama, she said quickly, why didn't you tell us you were bringing someone? I folded my hands in my lap. You didn't tell me you were rewriting my ownership, I replied. Caleb laughed nervously. This is getting dramatic, he said. We were just trying to help. Lillian opened her folder. Help usually doesn't involve removing someone's name from their own property, she said. The room went still. Marcus's face hardened. You've been spying on us, he accused, pointing at me. I looked at him calmly. I've been paying attention, I said. There's a difference. Denise stood up suddenly. This is unfair, she snapped. You're making us look like criminals. I tilted my head slightly. Then explain the bank logins, I said. Explain the copied documents. Explain the group messages. Her mouth opened, then closed. Caleb pushed his chair back. So what, you're going to call the police now? He scoffed. No, I replied. I'm going to tell the truth. That seemed to scare them more than any threat. Lillian slid a single paper toward Marcus. This version of the document removes your mother's sole control, she said. Can you explain why? Marcus glanced at it, then looked away. It was advice, he muttered. From who? Lillian asked. He didn't answer. Denise crossed her arms. "You're overreacting," she said to me. "You always do this when you get stressed." I stood up slowly. For the first time that evening. "I am not stressed," I said. "I am awake." My voice surprised even me. It didn't shake. It didn't rise. It carried. "I trusted you," I continued. "I trusted you with my home, my money, my future." I looked at each of them. "And you used that trust as a shortcut." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "You're being dramatic," he shouted. Caleb jumped in. "Yeah, this is ridiculous. You raised us, you should trust us." I met his eyes. "I raised you to respect me," I said. "You chose something else." Denise's eyes filled with tears. Real or not, I couldn't tell. "You're going to tear this family apart," she cried. I felt a familiar ache in my chest. But I didn't bend. "This family was already tearing," I said quietly. I just stopped pretending it was. The arguments overlapped then. Marcus blamed Denise. Denise blamed Caleb. Caleb blamed Marcus. Voices rose. Accusations flew. And in that noise, something became clear. They were not united. They were desperate. Lillian raised her voice once. "Enough," she said. The room fell silent again. She looked at me. "Evelyn," she said gently, "do you want me to explain your options?" "Yes," I replied without hesitation. My children froze. Lillian turned back to them. "Your mother has the right to revoke access," she said. "She can update protections. She can document attempted coercion." Denise's face went pale. "You wouldn't do that," she whispered to me. I met her eyes. "I already have," I said. Marcus's confidence collapsed in that moment. "You went behind our backs," he said, stunned. I nodded. "Just like you did to me," I replied. Caleb scoffed again, but his voice cracked. "You're really going to choose a stranger over your own kids?" I shook my head. "I chose myself," I said. For the first time. The room felt smaller now. Like the walls had moved in to hear every word. Denise started crying in earnest. "I was just trying to protect our future," she said. I walked closer to her. "Our future does not require my disappearance," I said gently. Marcus picked up the documents roughly. "This meeting is over," he said. Lillian didn't move. "No," she said, "this attempt is." I held up my hand. "Let them leave," I said. They all looked at me. I wasn't finished. "Take your copies," I continued. "Because I've already secured the originals." That hit them hard. Marcus's shoulders slumped. "You planned this," he said. I nodded. "You forced me to," I replied. They left one by one. Denise last. She paused at the door. "Mama," she said softly, "we didn't think you'd fight." I met her eyes. "That's because you stopped seeing me," I said. She left without another word. When the door closed, my legs finally gave out. I sat down slowly. My heart raced. My hands shook. Lillian sat across from me. "You did well," she said. I exhaled. "I don't feel strong," I admitted. She smiled gently. "Strength doesn't feel loud," she said. "It feels steady." That night, after Lillian left, I walked through my house. Every room. Touching the walls. The furniture. The life I had built. They had tried to erase me from it. They had failed. But I knew something else now. Confrontation was only the beginning. My children would not accept this quietly. They would try again. Maybe differently. Maybe more carefully. As I locked my bedroom door, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You've made a big mistake." I stared at the screen. Then saved it. Proof. Again. I lay down in bed, my heart still pounding. Tomorrow would bring consequences. For them. For me. And the next chapter would show whether blood ties were strong enough to survive the truth, or whether I would have to choose myself all over again. I did not sleep that night. Not because I was afraid of what my children might do next, but because my mind refused to slow down. Every sound in the house felt louder. The hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, even my own breathing sounded strange, like I was hearing it for the first time. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the message on my phone. "You've made a big mistake." I didn't know which one of them sent it, and that scared me more than if I did. By morning, my body felt heavy, but my resolve was firm. I woke up early, made myself oatmeal, and sat at the kitchen table like I always had. Same chair, same chipped mug, same morning light slipping through the window. But everything else had changed. For years, my life had moved around my children, their needs, their moods, their plans. Now, for the first time, I was moving around the truth. And the truth was this: they were not done. At 9 sharp, my phone rang. "Marcus." I let it ring. Then again. Then again. On the 4th call, I answered. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Mama," he said, his voice tight, "we need to talk." "We already did," I replied. "No," he snapped, "we didn't finish." I paused. "I'm listening," I said. He sighed loudly, like I was the problem. "You embarrassed us," he said. "You brought an outsider into family business." I stirred my oatmeal slowly. "You brought outsiders into my bank account," I replied. Silence. Then Denise's voice came on the line. "We were trying to protect you," she said quickly. "You don't understand how dangerous things are now." I closed my eyes. "Dangerous for who?" I asked. "For all of us," she said. "What if something happens to you? What if? What if I die?" I finished for her. She hesitated. "Yes," she whispered. I opened my eyes. "Then you wait," I said, "like everyone else." Caleb jumped in. "You're being stubborn," he said. "This doesn't have to get ugly." That word again. Ugly. I set my spoon down. "It already did," I said, "the moment you decided I was in your way." They tried a different approach then. Softer voices. Old memories. Guilt. "Mama, remember when we were kids?" Denise said. "You always said family sticks together," Marcus added. "You wouldn't really turn your back on us," Caleb said. Each sentence was a hook. And once, they would have worked. "I haven't turned my back," I said. "I turned on the light." They didn't like that. By the afternoon, the calls stopped. But the quiet felt worse. I knew them. They were regrouping. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. Not handwritten. Official. A notice claiming concern about my mental capacity. I read it twice. Then a third time. My hands shook. They were trying to paint me as unwell. Unstable. Unable to make decisions. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was exactly what I feared they would do. I called Lillian immediately. "They're escalating," she said after reading the letter, "and this is serious." "I know," I replied. "What do I do?" "You prepare," she said, "and you document everything." That same afternoon, a social worker knocked on my door. She was polite, professional, but cautious. "I'm here to check on you," she said gently. I smiled. "Of course," I replied. "Come in." We sat at the table. She asked questions. Simple ones at first. My name. The date. Who the president was. Then harder ones. About my finances. My family. My decisions. I answered calmly. Clearly. Confidently. She looked around my house. The clean kitchen. The organized papers. The calendar on the wall, with notes written in steady handwriting. She nodded. "You seem perfectly capable," she said. I smiled sadly. My children don't think so, I replied. When she left, she squeezed my hand. I see this more often than you'd think, she said. You're not alone. That nearly broke me. That night, I sat alone in my living room, holding an old photo. My children as kids. Smiling. Arms around each other. I traced their faces with my finger. How did we get here? I whispered. The next morning, Denise showed up unannounced. She looked tired. Different. Mama, she said softly, standing in my doorway. Can we talk? I stepped aside. She came in. She didn't sit right away. She paced. We didn't mean to hurt you, she said. We just thought you wouldn't need all this much longer. There it was. The truth. I sat down slowly. Do you hear yourself? I asked. She swallowed. I didn't mean it like that. But you thought it, I said. Tears filled her eyes. We're struggling, she admitted. Money is tight, we thought. You thought my life was the solution, I finished. She nodded. I felt something crack inside me. You could have asked, I said quietly. You could have told me the truth. She looked at the floor. We were scared you'd say no. I leaned forward. And you were right, I said. She stood suddenly. So that's it, she snapped. You're choosing this over us. No, I said firmly. I'm choosing not to disappear. She left angry, slamming the door. That night, my phone buzzed again. Another message. This one clearer. You're forcing our hand. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied. I already know what you're trying to do. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. No response. The next week was a blur. Letters. Calls. Whispers from relatives who suddenly checked in. My children were telling a story. And it wasn't a kind one. At church, a woman patted my arm. Your kids are worried, she said softly. I smiled politely. I'm sure they are, I replied. Behind the scenes, I worked harder than ever. Medical evaluations. Written statements. Witness accounts. I made copies. Lots of copies. One afternoon, Lillian looked at me and said, They're going to push for control. I nodded. I know. And if they do, she continued, you'll have to decide how far you're willing to go. I thought of the message. You've made a big mistake. I thought of my house. My life. My name. I've already gone far, I said. That evening, as I sat alone again, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mama, Marcus said. His voice was calm. Too calm. This doesn't have to be a war, he said. But if you keep fighting, you might lose more than money. My heart beat hard. What are you saying? I asked. I'm saying, he replied slowly, be careful. The line went dead. I sat there in silence. Then whispered words I never thought I'd say about my own children. They think fear will finish me. I stood up, walked to my bedroom, opened my safe, and took out the final folder. The one I hadn't shown anyone yet. The one that could change everything. Because if my children wanted a war, they were about to learn something. I didn't survive 73 years by breaking easily. The folder felt heavier than it looked. I held it in both hands as I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the small safe I had just opened. Inside that folder were documents I never imagined I would need against my own children. Records, letters, timelines, and notes I had written late at night when sleep would not come. This folder was not about money. It was about truth. And truth, I was learning, was the one thing my children feared most. The next morning started quietly. Too quietly. No phone calls. No messages. No knocks at the door. That silence didn't calm me. It warned me. I made breakfast slowly, my movements careful, my ears alert. Every car that passed made me glance toward the window. Every sound outside felt like it might be meant for me. I reminded myself to breathe. "You are still here," I whispered. "You are still capable." At 10 in the morning, my neighbor Mrs. Harris waved at me from her porch. "Morning, Evelyn," she called. "You all right, dear?" I smiled and waved back. "Just fine," I said. But even as I said it, I felt something tightening in my chest. Because I knew my children were not done. At noon, the phone rang. This time, it wasn't one of them. It was a clinic. "Mrs. Carter," the woman said politely, "we're calling to confirm your appointment for tomorrow. Cognitive assessment." I froze. "My what?" I asked. There was a pause. "A cognitive assessment," she repeated, "requested by your family." The room spun. "They did what?" I whispered. I hung up and sat down hard in my chair. So this was their next move. If they couldn't scare me, if they couldn't guilt me, they would try to silence me by saying I wasn't well. I called Lillian immediately. "They filed a request," she said grimly. "That's what the letter was leading to. They're trying to build a case." "To take control?" I asked. "Yes," she said, "and to discredit anything you say." My hands trembled. "I'm not sick," I said. "You know that." "I know," she replied, "but we have to prove it." That afternoon, Denise showed up again. This time, she didn't knock. She let herself in. "Mama," she said urgently, "we need to fix this before it gets worse." I stood slowly. "You already made it worse," I said. Her eyes darted around the room. "They're talking," she whispered. "People, family, church friends." I laughed bitterly. "So now you're worried about my reputation." She flinched. "We're worried about you," she insisted. "No," I said firmly. "You're worried about control." She reached for my arm. "Please," she said. "Just cooperate, do the assessment. Let Marcus handle things for now." I pulled my arm away. "I will not give my voice to someone who tried to steal my life," I said. Her face hardened. "You're forcing us," she snapped. I met her eyes. "You force me first." She left angry again. And this time, I didn't cry. The next day, I went to the clinic. Not because they told me to, but because I chose to. I dressed neatly. I brought my folder. I answered every question calmly. Dates. Memories. Decisions. I spoke clearly. Confidently. The doctor watched me closely. At the end, she smiled. "You are sharp, Mrs. Carter," she said. "Very much so." Relief washed over me, but it didn't last. Because I knew my children wouldn't stop at one failure. By the end of the week, the whispers reached me. Through neighbors. Through church. Through distant relatives. She's confused. She's not herself. She's being manipulated. Each one hurt. But each one also strengthened my resolve. One evening, Marcus finally showed up. He didn't smile. He didn't shout. That scared me more than anything else. "We need to talk," he said quietly. I stepped aside. He walked in and sat down like he owned the place. "You're dragging this out," he said. "You're hurting everyone." I crossed my arms. "I didn't start this," I replied. He leaned forward. "You can still end it," he said. "Sign control over, let this go." I shook my head. "I won't," I said simply. His jaw tightened. "Then you leave me no choice," he said. My heart pounded. "What choice?" I asked. He stood. "You'll see," he replied, and walked out. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay awake, thinking of every sacrifice I had made. Every meal skipped. Every dream delayed. Every dollar stretched. All for them. And now they wanted me gone, not dead but erased. At dawn, I made another decision. I would not let them tell my story for me. If they wanted to speak about me, I would speak first. I called a family meeting. Not at my house. At a neutral place. Community center. Public. Witnesses. They didn't expect that. They showed up confused. Suspicious. But they came. I stood at the front of the room. Hands steady. Voice calm. I called you here, I said, because there are lies being told about me. They shifted in their seats. I am not confused, I continued. I am not incapable, and I am not disappearing. I looked directly at my children. I am still the woman who built everything you are trying to take. Murmurs filled the room. Marcus stood. This is unnecessary, he said. No, I replied. It's overdue. I held up the folder. And I have proof. Gasps. Denise stared at me. Caleb looked angry. Scared. For the first time, they were not in control of the room. I kept quiet for years, I said. I trusted you. But silence is not peace when it's forced. I paused. And today, I take my voice back. The room went still. And I knew, right then, that whatever came next, there was no turning back. The moment I lifted that folder in front of everyone, the room changed. Not loudly. Not suddenly. It changed the way air does before a storm. People leaned forward. Whispers stopped. Even the children who had been running in the hallway went quiet, like they sensed something serious was happening. My children did not look at me anymore. They looked at the folder. Marcus was the first to recover. This is ridiculous, he said, forcing a laugh. You're putting private family matters on display. I met his eyes. You made them public the moment you told people I was unwell, I said. A few heads in the room turned toward him. Denise shifted in her chair. That's not what we said, she muttered. I opened the folder. Then let me repeat exactly what was said, I replied calmly. My voice did not shake. That surprised me. I had imagined this moment 100 times, always thinking my knees would give out, my words would tangle. But standing there with people watching, something steadied inside me. I was no longer defending myself. I was telling the truth. I was told I am confused, I said. I was told I should not handle my own money. I was told decisions were being made for my own good. Murmurs spread through the room. I held up the first page. This is a bank access log, I said. It shows who entered my account when and from where. Marcus stood up sharply. That's private, he snapped. So is my trust, I replied. I didn't read every detail. I didn't need to. Just enough. Dates. Times. Names. Denise's face drained of color. Caleb stared at the floor. This, I continued, lifting another paper, is a copy of a document altered without my consent. Someone gasped. I heard my neighbor whisper my name. Marcus stepped forward. Enough, he said. You're embarrassing yourself. That word again. Embarrassing. I smiled softly. No, I said. I'm remembering myself. Denise stood. Mama, stop, she pleaded. This isn't how family works. I looked at her. Family does not plan in secret, I said. Family does not rush signatures. And family does not silence elders to make room for greed. That word, greed, hung heavy. Caleb finally spoke. You're twisting things, he said. You always do this. A murmur of disagreement rippled through the room. One woman stood up. She sounds clear to me, she said. Another nodded. So do I, someone else added. Marcus's control was slipping. I could see it. His jaw tightened. His hands clenched. You don't know the whole story, he said to the room. I turned to face him fully. Then tell it, I said. He didn't. Silence stretched. And in that silence, something important happened. People started to see. Not just the papers, not just the proof, but the pattern. After the meeting ended, people approached me quietly, squeezed my hand, hugged me, whispered support. "I'm proud of you," one woman said. I nearly cried then. My children left without speaking to me. All three. Together. For the first time, they didn't look like a team. They looked like strangers sharing a secret. That night, alone again, I sat on my bed and let myself feel everything. The grief. The relief. The sadness of knowing nothing would ever be the same. But also something new. Freedom. My phone buzzed once. A message from an unknown number. "You think this is over?" I stared at the screen, then placed the phone face down. "I know better," I whispered. "Because when the truth leaves a room, it doesn't disappear. It travels. And the next place it was going would change everything." The day after the meeting, my phone would not stop ringing. I did not answer it. Not because I was afraid, but because I needed silence to hear myself think. For the first time since this all began, the truth was no longer trapped inside my house or my heart. It was outside now, moving from mouth to mouth, from porch to porch, from prayer circle to grocery store line. And truth, once released, does not walk slowly. I sat at my kitchen table, holding my mug of tea, watching steam rise and disappear. That's when it hit me. I had told the truth. But telling the truth has a price. And today, I would start paying it. By noon, the first knock came. It was my sister-in-law, Ruth. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, lips tight. "I heard what you did," she said without greeting. I stepped aside and let her in. She didn't sit. "You embarrassed your children," she said. "You put them on display." I nodded. "They embarrassed themselves," I replied calmly. She shook her head. "You could have handled this quietly." I looked at her. "They were handling me quietly," I said. "I chose not to disappear." She left without another word. An hour later, a cousin called. Then another. Some were supportive. Others were careful. A few were cold. Each call reminded me of something important. When you stop being silent, people have to choose where they stand. That afternoon, Denise sent a message. "Mama, you didn't have to destroy us like that." I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "I didn't destroy you. I protected myself." 3 dots appeared. Then vanished. Marcus didn't message. That worried me. Marcus never stayed quiet unless he was planning something. The next day, I received a notice in the mail. A formal one. Legal language. Cold. They were contesting my decisions. Claiming I was influenced. Manipulated. Unstable. I sat down slowly. "So this is how far you'll go," I whispered. I called Lillian. "They're pushing hard," she said after reading it. "They're trying to overwhelm you." "I won't fold," I replied. "I know," she said, "but this will get ugly before it gets clear." By the end of the week, my children stopped calling altogether. Instead, they sent messages through others. Warnings disguised as concern. "She's being stubborn. She's confused. She doesn't know what she's doing." But now, people were asking questions. And that scared them. One evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sun sink low, Mrs. Harris came over and sat beside me. "I heard what happened," she said gently. I nodded. She patted my hand. "You were brave," she said. That word stayed with me all night. Brave. The next morning, I woke up with a strange calm. The kind that comes after a storm has already hit. I looked at myself in the mirror and said something I had never said out loud before. I am allowed to protect myself. That afternoon, I made another decision. A quiet one. I began changing things, not out of fear but intention. Locks, access, plans, not revenge. Protection. Then, just as the sun was setting, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mama, Marcus said. His voice was low. Controlled. We need to meet, he said. My heart beat faster. Why? I asked. Because this isn't over, he replied. I took a breath. I know, I said. We agreed to meet the next day. Public place. Witnesses. That night, sleep did not come easily. I lay awake, thinking of everything I had lost. And everything I was still fighting to keep. But deep down, I knew something else too. The hardest part was already behind me. I had broken the silence. And tomorrow, I would see just how much that scared them. I arrived early. The cafe was already busy, the low hum of voices filling the space. Cups clinked. A door chimed every time someone walked in. I chose a table near the window, not hidden, not private. Public. Witnessed. Safe. I placed my purse on the chair beside me and rested both hands on the table, palms down, steadying myself. This was not a meeting between a mother and her son. This was a meeting between two people who wanted very different things. Marcus walked in 10 minutes late. He looked around before spotting me, his jaw tightening as he crossed the room. He did not hug me. He did not smile. He sat down without asking. You didn't have to make this so public, he said. I met his eyes. You didn't have to make it so cruel, I replied. He exhaled sharply. You've turned people against us, he said. Family, friends. I stirred my coffee slowly. I told the truth, I said. What they do with it is not my job. He leaned forward. You don't understand what you're doing, he said. You're burning bridges. I looked at him carefully. Bridges only matter if they lead somewhere safe, I replied. He laughed bitterly. So what now? He asked. You cut us off, you live alone, you think that's winning. I felt a familiar ache, but I didn't let it move me. I think choosing myself is surviving, I said. Marcus's voice dropped. You think Denise and Caleb will forgive this? He asked. You think this won't follow you? I leaned back. I think you're afraid, I said quietly. His eyes flashed. He tried a new tactic then. Softer. Almost kind. Mama, he said, let's stop this. We can fix it. Just sign a limited agreement. We'll step back. You'll still be in charge. I shook my head. No, I said. Why not? He demanded. Because you already showed me who you are when you thought I wasn't watching. His face hardened. Then don't be surprised by what comes next, he said. I looked at him. I'm already not surprised, I replied. He stood abruptly. You'll regret this, he said. I stayed seated. I regret trusting you, I said calmly. Not this. He walked out without looking back. I sat there for a long time after he left, watching people laugh, watching life move forward. And I realized something important. The fear I had carried for weeks was gone. Not because the danger had passed, but because I was done running from it. That evening, I made one final call. Not to Lillian. Not to family. To myself. I opened the folder one last time and placed everything in order. Every message. Every attempt. Every threat. And at the top, I wrote a single sentence. I did not imagine this. I placed the folder back in the safe and closed it with a steady hand. Whatever came next, I would face it standing. And I knew, deep down, that the final chapter would not be quiet. The morning after I met Marcus, I woke up before the sun. Not because I was afraid. Not because I was anxious. But because something inside me had finally settled. For weeks, no, for months, my life had felt like it was hanging in the air, waiting for someone else to decide how it should land. My children thought they were the ones holding the string. They were wrong. I stood at my bedroom window and watched the sky slowly turn light. Birds moved from tree to tree. Cars passed in the distance. Life, steady and unbothered, went on. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was going on with it too. That day, the final consequences arrived. Not in the form of shouting or threats, but in paperwork, official letters, withdrawn claims, silence where pressure used to be. It turns out that when lies are exposed early and in the open, they don't age well. The same people my children had tried to convince now wanted nothing to do with their story. And suddenly, they were tired. Denise came first. She didn't call. She didn't warn me. She just showed up. I saw her through the window, standing on the porch with her arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. I opened the door but didn't step aside. "Yes?" I asked. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. "Mama," she said, voice shaking, "I didn't think it would go this far." I nodded. "That's usually how it happens," I replied. She cried then. Not loudly. Quietly. "I was scared," she said. "We all were. We didn't want to end up with nothing." I looked at her carefully. "And you thought I was nothing," I said. She flinched. "No," she whispered. "We thought you wouldn't need it anymore." I stepped back and let her in. We sat at the table, where so many lies had been spoken. I poured tea. She wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, "truly." I believed that she believed it. But belief doesn't erase damage. "I forgive you," I said slowly, "but forgiveness does not mean access." She nodded, crying harder. "I understand," she said. And for the first time, I meant it when I said goodbye. Caleb never came. He sent a message instead. I didn't mean for it to get ugly. I read it once, then deleted it. Some apologies arrived too late to matter. Marcus was last. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He sent a single message. "Do what you want. I'm done." I smiled sadly when I read it. Because for the first time, so was I. The weeks that followed were quiet. Painfully quiet at first. Then peacefully so. I changed my routine. I took walks in the morning. I joined a small book club at the community center. I laughed again, real laughter, not the kind that fills silence. People stopped asking questions. They started respecting boundaries. So did I. One afternoon, Mrs. Harris sat beside me on the porch and said, "You look lighter." I thought about that. "I am," I replied. I put something down. "What?" she asked. I smiled. The need to be chosen by people who were already choosing themselves. I didn't lose everything. I lost illusions. And those were heavier than I ever admitted. I kept my home, my name, my voice. But more than that, I kept my dignity. One evening, I opened my old photo album again. The one with pictures of my children as kids. I didn't cry this time. I closed it gently and placed it back on the shelf. Love does not disappear, but it does change shape. And sometimes, distance is the only way it survives at all. On my 74th birthday, I baked my own cake. Chocolate. Extra frosting. I lit the candle and made a wish. Not for family to come back the way it was, but for peace to stay the way it felt. That night, as I turned off the lights and walked to my bedroom, I paused in the hallway and looked around my home one last time. Every wall held a memory. Every room held a choice I had made. And none of them belonged to anyone else. My children thought they could take everything I worked for. What they didn't understand was that the most valuable thing I owned was never money. It was the moment I finally chose myself. And I am still choosing. If this story touched you, Please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.